Hello and welcome back to the Prosperous Homeschool Summit, where we help remarkable homeschool families and those interested in homeschooling lead a prosperous, productive, and healthy life now and for their future. So today we have Amanda Schenkenberger, and she leads the Homeschool Family Legacy. So Amanda, I'm so thankful that you joined us today. I love that you are just this amazing, patient, wonderful person that I've gotten to just talk to briefly. And I've been so thankful with just the little conversations that we've had and realizing there's so much more to just different situations that people come across in the homeschooling world that I never really comprehended before. I always just kind of thought, oh, just the standard curriculum or whatever, but there's so many other complications that can go into it. And you really have a just a great business that leads into that. But before we go into there, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Amanda, and your background?
Yeah, thank you so much, Andrea. I'm really happy to be here. So my name is Amanda Schenkenberger. I am a former homeschool kid myself, and I also now homeschool my four boys. Their ages between 4 and 11, and we have a whole lot of fun. And I just have always loved homeschooling so much. I called myself like a homeschooling evangelist. I'm like, you should homeschool your kids. It's great. Let me help you. And
that.
now I get to do that for my business. So where I really focus on helping families is helping parents really use homeschooling to create their family's legacy. How do we impart our values? How do we nurture curious minds? How do we cultivate courageous spirits and really help our children walk out like what they were created to be, right? It's not just like, okay, let's get started. Let's figure it out. It's really like, okay, how do thrive in this? And so I help parents, mostly moms, because we're usually the head of the homeschooling. We calm the chaos, create a schedule, and build strong bonds so that we can pair rigorous academics and joyful connection together. I think those things are complementary, not contrast. So I help you figure that out through coaching, and then I have a main program, Homeschool Family Academy, where I help parents do that.
Oh, that's lovely. Yes, so calm the chaos. If you could describe a little bit about how you go about that, I think that's a huge portion of why people don't want to start homeschooling. They just think of it as chaotic. So can you speak to that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. So I think there's a lot of reasons why somebody might feel chaos in their homeschooling. And I think one of the main ways I start helping families is with the schedule, because you might have the best intentions in the world. You might be a super sweet mom. You've always wanted to homeschool. This is exactly what you wanted. But if you don't have a solid schedule, everything is it's kind of like spaghetti's flying everywhere, right?
Mm.
So I help moms really begin with a foundation of starting with how do they organize their time. And it's not just about, well, what do we do for homeschooling? It's no, how do we organize your life to support homeschooling, homemaking, whatever other activities you have going on? Like, I'm a working homeschool mom. How do we support you in that? And how do we organize your life so you can do all these amazing things? So they're kind of like the main way I begin to help moms to calm the chaos. But then even if we have this great schedule, there's I like to talk about how homeschooling, we knew it was going to be hard, but we didn't know it was going to be a journey of self-discovery. And all of our triggers that kind of come up during homeschooling that are relationship based, right?
Mm.
And so you might be like, yeah, I know I've got some things to deal with. Maybe I have a really hard time with being patient, or I'm kind of a yeller, right?
Mm.
Well, if you want to work on those things, you have to have time in your schedule to do so. So that brings us back to, okay, well, let's make sure we've got our ducks in a row here to support you to explore this emotional, helping you get emotional mastery within
Mm.
yourself, so that then you can impart it to your children.
Oh,
So
that's
there's
good.
there's chaos outside and then there's chaos inside. And I really help moms do both.
Wow, that's huge. So, like, I'm thinking through what you're saying, and I'm going, Yeah, I think that's why I'm one of my sons is in school. I'm homeschooling my older girls because, well, they're a little bit older and they are willing to sit and do what they need to do to get it done. And my son, like, he's got all that energy, and you
Yeah.
understand this with boys. Some
Yeah.
boys are a little bit more laid back, but this is my one who's a little bit of a rocket in the house. So
Yeah.
I am already going, how am I going to handle that? How am I going to handle that? Like 2020 made me go, no.
Right. And one of the things I really think homeschooling does for us, it's a gift for our personal growth, us as moms, because we get to learn and shift into who do I need to become so my child can succeed. Right. And so it really takes a lot of self-reflection and stretching to step into that. And sometimes, we're not ready or we got to set some things up. But that's what I think is one of the most beautiful things about homeschooling is it gives us ample opportunity to grow and the highest level of motivation to do so, because these are our children. We love them like no other. Of course, I would want to change for them. I might not want to change for me, and I'll just sit over here with my hurt and my sadness and like all my generational trauma, but
Right.
I want to do better for this kid. Okay,
Mm,
I'm willing to do the work. Right. That's what I
so
think
good.
is such a gift that homeschooling gives us.
That's huge. That's so great. I love it. So I know we talked a little bit about neurodiversity. So that was a word that was very new to me. And so why don't you describe that a little bit and what it means?
Yeah, absolutely. So, neurodiversity is a concept that celebrates and recognizes the diversity within neurological differences. So, think about like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, right? And there's a whole host of others. But when you think about neurodiversity, we recognize and celebrate that these are natural and they can be very valuable variations within the human brain rather than you have a deficit or you have a disorder that needs to be fixed. I think kids with a lot of energy, I mean, obviously, I'm partial to boys. I love boys, but they have so much energy. And I think and there's like different levels, like you're saying, some boys are kind of laid back, and I definitely have one of those. And then I have one on the other end that is, Mom, what can I do next? What can I do next? Can I do this? Can I do this? And I'm like, how much? And so there are some boys that are just, they have this energy. And I really think that they are born to be world changers. There are certain people that just have more energy than others. And I see it a lot. I see it a lot in boys. And so one of the things is a lot of times in like public school, they get labeled as ADHD and they'll be suggested to put them on Ritalin, right? And some parents are like, that's not what I want for my child. I don't think there's something wrong with my child. I just think they have abundance of energy. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of parents nowadays are homeschooling because they see their child's neurological differences not as problems to be medicated, but as gifts that get to be honed and funneled. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually a really large population of homeschoolers that are neurodiverse, and some of them, there could be autism all the way up to, they call them 2E, twice exceptional. And so think of kids that maybe are on the higher end of intellectually. And sometimes that comes with maybe they have increased anxiety or they have poor social skills because they're super intelligent, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
they don't thrive in a public school environment. So moms are bringing their kids home to cater to whatever this child needs so that they can excel. They don't have a problem. They just don't, they have a problem fitting into this box of public school.
Right, right. Yes, absolutely. Wow. Okay. So we talked also about if the parent is the person who I think the term was executive functioning challenges. And so sometimes parents feel like, well, I have this, so I can't homeschool. What would you say in that kind of situation?
Yeah, so I actually know a lot of moms who once they have their child diagnosed with, for example, ADHD, they begin to recognize those symptoms in themselves. Now, typically they're already homeschooling, but for a mom who like they know they're ADHD or they know they're time challenged, which if you think of executive functioning skills and the lack thereof, that really gets to being time challenged. Like maybe you really struggle with being on time. Maybe you're not very good at planning. Maybe you commit to too much, right? And it because you don't have the space to think through things. And one of the things I want moms to know is that executive functioning skills, planning skills are skills. They get to be learned. And so most of the time, if you went to public school, you have a traditional job, you have never really been in charge of your own schedule. And now you are not only having to be in charge of your own schedule, create it, you have to manage all these other little things that are chaos creators. And how do you do that? Right. So it's a skill that gets to be learned, but then like on the other end of things, sometimes our brains don't have the capability to learn them. So that's executive functioning kind of like challenges. And it might be for various reasons. For example, my husband, he had lots of seizures in his younger years. And so there's some kind of like brain damage in there where time just is different for him. And children, just children in general, don't feel the passage of time. And so he feels the passage of time differently than a typical person would. So it's not that you can't do this, it's that you get to learn a system that supports you and tools that will help you move forward to create the same thing that a typical person rather than an atypical person could. So it's about either learning the skill or learning about the tools that support you so you could create that skill.
Very interesting. Okay, so I'm leaning into this a little bit because I'm going, I'm wondering if I'm not going to point any fingers, but because this will be out in public. But I'm wondering if I know somebody who maybe had some childhood trauma that has made it so time is not valuable. Does that make sense? Is that something like what you're talking about here, where they don't they aren't interested necessarily in always being on time? Would that be something that might be
that might be a little different? It's really interesting to experience somebody, like to try to think of something from somebody else's experience, right? For example, I could read a text and like, oh, this person is like happy that I got a job done, and then somebody else can read the same text and they would be like, oh my gosh, they're like mad at me, right? So being in somebody's experience and then why they're responding that way is complex and nuanced, right? So if it's perceived to you that they don't value time, it might be because they like finally gave up trying to be on time because they felt stupid not being on time, and they just couldn't do it because no one trained them, or they lack those skills like literally in their brain. And so they gave up and they're like, you know what, I just don't care about your time. And that's what it looks like, but the why behind that can be so much deeper. So that's really hard to say.
Yes, I know, but that's why I'm like, that's interesting, because I would have never gone that far. But it's so true. Our childhood really, like as we're growing up, it affects the way we manage ourselves as adults. Very, very true. So you help people discover a path that really leads them to being successful in the homeschool community or classroom. Give us an example of someone that maybe you've helped. I know we talked briefly about someone you recently helped. Why don't you share that story with us, and maybe if you have another one?
So And this was just like really in passing. I was hosting a live workshop, and a mom, I was talking about building your schedule and the importance of it. And I had a mom mention to me, she's like, I just had a stroke recently. I've had a lot of brain fog, and I can't like balance all the things anymore. Like what should I do? And so I gave her some strategies to take off the mental load, because especially we hold so much as moms in our mind. If period, we could take off some of the mental load, whether we have brain fog or not, we're going to help ourselves. But she needed to be able to see her time. And so I gave her like some strategies with the training I had just given about organizing her day, as well as doing like a 3-month calendar, like she can just see on the wall, so she doesn't have to carry that information in her brain, because it's kind of jumbled right now. She just had a stroke. There's a lot going on up there. She might feel tired and not know why, or wires are getting crossed. So she needs to be able to put it somewhere she can see it and not carry it around in her head. And so that was just briefly in a conversation while I was hosting a workshop. Another mom, I have a program called 60 Days to Consistency, where I really I teach in depth about planning. And then every week we meet together for 60 days to help you instill that habit of planning for homeschool. And so one of the moms that I helped the last time I ran the program, she her family, herself, and many of the members of her family are dealing with various kinds of sickness and doctor visits, a whole bunch of different things. So their day looks different every single day because they have doctor's appointments they must go to. Yeah. And so I helped her organize her day to be able to okay, let's insert, we've got 3 hours here, let's insert homeschooling here. And then, okay, you've got to do the grocery shopping, so let's go ahead and insert it here. But on these days, all you have to do is make sure you have lunch packed so you can go to all your appointments. Oh, this day, these time blocks are open, so let's insert homeschooling here, let's insert some housework here. And then, then you have time to prep for the next day. Right. But because her day constantly fluctuated, and it was one of those things where it's not like you can create consistency in it. She might feel really sick one day. So what is she going to do? Right. And she was beginning to feel hopeless. Like, I'm never going to be able to create this consistency that I really want. But we were able, based on my blocking schedule, to create those pockets of time for her so that every day she could figure out what she needed to do. Even if it was the day of, she could pop things in and organize and really have a strategy to take on homeschooling, housework, even if she wasn't feeling well.
Wow. That's great. Just in general, I think, oh my gosh, to be able to look at a calendar and go, okay, well, that doesn't work for today, but this would. How much freedom that presents. Like you said, mentally, but also physically. You get to go and do those things that you've just created a plan for, a structure, right? Yeah. So that's amazing and very, very fabulous. So let's just talk a little bit about what I know you want to encourage everybody to homeschool. What have you seen as
yes,
the biggest, the biggest benefits? I know we've talked about it a little bit, but it would be your golden message to everybody with homeschooling.
Yeah. I really believe that homeschooling has the power to intimately bond your family into this cohesive unit where you get to experience your children fully. They get to experience you fully. And I see you in your hardship where you're struggling. I can acknowledge your effort, praise your progress. I am in life with you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's beautiful. One of my core values is intimacy. And even as hard as my children's, emotional junk is, I don't want somebody else to navigate that with them. I want to navigate that with them. I want to see them excel. I want to know where they're doing well so that we can open up the box on that and see, you're really good at this. What else do you like about this? How can I help you build this skill? Like my 11-year-old, he loves science. He calls himself a nerd. Like you ask him science fact, like he started reading this book about physics. I'm like, what? Like, okay.
I don't
um,
know. Wow.
I know. And so because we homeschool, and he's only 11, he's taking a high school science class. Like I have a dead dogfish in my living room waiting for him to dissect.
Oh,
Yeah, that's, not
pro or
something.
con?
It's like, well, but we got to do that together, and that's exciting for me. And he just loves it. Like one of his gifts for Hanukkah is like this like pocket microscope, and we gave it to him the other day, and he's like, I'm gonna look at everything, you know? So
Awesome.
it's really exciting to be in it with your children, to know them intimately and to help them navigate life. It's a real like close like mentorship bond that you have, and you're not going to be able to have this with any other person on the planet besides your own children unless you like adopt and then they become your children. So if you miss this opportunity, you miss it, right? And then even more than that, it's like, because I have 4 kids, sometimes when you only have 1 kid or 2 kids, it's a little different, but we're a unit. We get to experience life together. And we're, as families, only get to go on vacation and experience that. We get to do that every day.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Why would I trade anything for that?
Yeah.
So those are just some of the reasons why I think homeschooling is amazing. You get to play to your kids' passions and their strengths and their interests, and you really get to be deeply connected with them.
I love it. I love it. I'm already going, oh, how can I incorporate more? Like to get that intimacy with my family and like helping them even like understand each one of them has something to offer. I've always tried to look at it like that. Like, yes, you all have unique personalities. How can you help each other? What can you offer each other? How can you encourage each other and recognize that it's okay that maybe this isn't your strong suit, but this is their strong suit. So you can actually connect on this and you can both grow in it, right?
Yeah.
So that community that you're creating in your own home, right? That's beautiful. It's lovely. I love that picture you've drawn with that. So there's only one more thing I wanted to lean in, because you do run this as a business, which is fabulous. And you've talked about people who are doctors and that kind of thing, but you're running your business from home, right? So I'm curious, maybe what are some boundaries or some scheduling things you've built so that you can do that? Because so obviously that could all like overlap and could become a bit tricky. So what would you say about that?
Yeah. So I have designated work times. Like right now, as we record, this is my designated work time. My husband's in charge of the morning. He like actually he trained our kids to make breakfast. So the kids make breakfast. He's in charge of making sure they get ready, no fires, right?
Yeah.
Boys in the kitchen, they could do it though.
Yeah.
Making sure everybody gets ready, making sure like they do Bible time together and they get started in their homeschooling. And then at 10 o'clock is when I stop working and I go out there, and either my kids and I are like off to jujitsu or we're doing homeschooling together. So I have really hard ins and hard outs. So that's tip number 1. And then I have to, if I stop working at 10, well, there's still a whole day where maybe somebody like needs to talk to me or an email I need to get back to. And that sometimes we need hard ins and hard outs there as well, as far as how much time we're spending on our phone, how actually much we're connecting with their children. So, when it comes to like short term, like, okay, I'm going to look on Instagram, share some things, that gets down to, well, where's your emotional bandwidth and how much do you want to connect with your kids? And I mean, I have now my youngest is 4. When I had 3 under 5, that looked entirely different. Right. Like sometimes unfortunately, I thought I was so proud of myself in this moment where I was nursing one of my sons and I'm like responding on my phone and I'm thinking in my head, how good am I at being productive? And then I'm like, but I'm not connecting with my baby. Like I might as well be a cow. or a bottle. Like I'm not actually connecting with them. And so, and that, that might be right for some parents and not right for me. And so it's really being in tune with yourself and being clear on what your values are, and then using your values to dictate your schedule. So,
Wow.
and that's, I mean, I know this might sound strange to somebody, but if you've been in business, you know about like business vision, and your schedule just gets to become the legs for your vision in homeschooling. That's what it
Mhm.
gets to become. And so that's the bottom line. When we get really clear on that, it becomes a lot easier to decide on like, okay, when am I going to be on my phone? When am I going to be working? When am I fully engaged with my children?
Yeah. Yeah. So good. Yes. And so we've talked about how to go walk through different business things a little bit earlier. And so true when you have a vision. And I love that the legs for your vision. Like, wow. Wow. It's just awesome. All right. Well, that's all the time we have for today. So Amanda, thank you so much. I know you put a little bit of a freebie in our in the email for today. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. Do you remember if it was the pressure free
Pressure
masterclass?
free. Yes. Yes,
That one.
that was the
Okay.
one.
Yeah. So if you are thinking about homeschooling and you are like just kind of dipping your toes in and you're not quite sure if you want to do it yet, or on the other end, if you've been homeschooling a while and you kind of hit a rut, the pressure free homeschooling masterclass is a great fit for you, because I give you one simple strategy to use in your homeschooling to create bonds, to create curriculum, to really foster a love of learning. And so you can do this class even if you aren't homeschooling yet. And so you can kind of just get a taste of what could be for homeschooling, or if you find yourself like, oh, homeschooling is really hard right now. Take the class. It's like 20 minutes, and go through it, and use this one simple strategy to really revitalize that love of learning.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Amanda. I really appreciate you and everything that you're doing, as well as coming on this interview. So you have a wonderful day, and everyone else who's watching this, may God bless you abundantly and give you vision for your homeschool today.
Mm-hmm. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Nancy.